All right, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, narrative designer, and senior content manager in social media, as you guys already know by now. And this is the last episode in a mini-series that I developed in collaboration with Women-Led Games to help highlight all the amazing women developers in the indie game development community. There will be more coming from those people who put themselves forward for this series, but for now, I'm going to wrap up this mini parenthesis of the show with Renee Gittins today. But before we get into the episode, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons, Feynoko, Zagini, Fishbumdemph, and Peleg. You guys are incredible, and I love having you in the community every single day. Your support means a lot. And if you too, listeners, want to support the show, you can go to theindiediarist.com, patreon.com/theindiediarist, or check out the links in the description to subscribe to one of my tiers, which start from as little as £1.25 per month and include a range of benefits such as access to episodes in advance, uncut episodes, and a lot more. But without further ado, let's get into this episode with Renee Gittins for Indie Diary number 44. All right, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, the show on the human stories behind indie game development. And today with me is actually someone that expressed interest during my collaboration with Women-Led Games ahead of the showcase. Her name is Renee, and Renee, I'll just let you introduce yourself as the last one of this trio of women developers from Women-Led Games. There will be more coming in the future, but this is like this mini-series ends with you. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're based, and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, my name is Renee Gittins. I am the CEO and creative director of my own indie studio, Stumbling Cat, and we just launched our game Potions: A Curious Tale, which is an adventure crafting game where combat's not always the answer and your wits are your greatest weapons. I have been in the games industry for over a decade now, in various roles, but mostly at startup studios. However, my last position was as the general manager of Phoenix Labs Vancouver, the creators of Dauntless and Fae Farm. And prior to that, I was the executive director of the International Game Developers Association. My expertise is across software engineering, creative direction, and business operations and management. I've done lots and lots of consulting, mentoring, and other things to uplift other indie devs and game developers because so many people helped me on my own career.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And yes, I discovered while I was thinking about questions to ask you for this episode that you do have a Wikipedia page. So that was an interesting surprise. So if you look up Renee Gittins on Wikipedia or just on Google, you'll be able to find quite a few pieces of info on Renee here. But yeah, no, lovely. And I love what you said about uplifting other indie game studios or other people. Oh, I see a Red versus Blue poster in the background. I love that series.
Yeah, it's signed by Bernie Burns.
Beautiful. Okay, well, let's not get into Red versus Blue. That was a brilliant series. I always like to open these episodes with a little icebreaker. And if you've listened to other episodes, you will know what this one will be. If you could be any game's character for a day, who would you be and why?
Oh, that's really tough. I'm going to cheat on this one.
Okay.
So I've actually been playing World of Warcraft for 17 years. And I've been in the same guild for 17 years and playing the same character for 17 years.
Okay.
Which is a feral druid. And I would love to have the ability to turn into a cat, take a nap, turn into a bird, fly places, heal people, cure diseases. So I would be my WoW character.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that works. And also it's commitment. Huh? You said 17 years. Wow. Okay.
17 years.
That's quite a bit. Yeah, well then that's I don't think it's cheating. I mean, it's a character you made yourself and you're playing as, so I suppose it works. Roleplay, I would say. All right. Well, and as you probably know from the little overview that I gave you on the show, this show is about the stories of the people who come on board to speak to me. And I always like to start from the beginning. So when you think about, for example, your early years, your childhood, what is your earliest or fondest memory that has to do with video games?
So I have really early memories of video games because my father was into video games, particularly first-person shooters. So I remember that was a really big bonding thing that we did together. I would pull my chair up to his desk and watch him play Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, and Half-Life. And Half-Life we really bonded over. And those were also sort of my first games.
Quite games for a child, I would say.
Yeah. I had to ask why you give the dancing ladies money. There's all sorts of things you learn from Duke Nukem as a child.
Oh God, Duke Nukem. Yeah.
But I have a lot of fond memories of watching my dad play video games, and then playing those same games myself not too long after.
Yeah, well, that reminds me my own one of my own earliest memories. But I have a lot of fond memories that involve playing video games with my uncle, actually, because he's the one who's into games in the family. My dad tried for a little while, then dreamt about Spyro for 3 nights straight and got scared and never got back anymore. But my uncle, is very much into games. It still is today, and he introduced me to this world, and it was always nice to just pull up a chair and see him play Final Fantasy or all those games that he likes to play still now. But well, of course, these are the games that you mentioned you started playing, but are there other games that you remember playing growing up? Because when I see Potions...
you don't see a lot of first-person shooter in it?
It's not a first-person shooter, so I suppose, is there anything that you were playing that kind of influenced what you made or what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I would say that after I started playing first-person shooters, I eventually got a PlayStation 1, and that's where I ended up playing a lot of games, a lot of JRPGs, where I fell in love with the storylines there, the character designs as well. And then one of the games that I'm particularly fond of for level design and hidden areas is very specific. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets
on PS1.
On PC.
On PC, okay, yeah, they were wildly different. They're
wildly different. And that's a game that I think just has amazing level design. It is actually installed on my computer right now, which takes some hackery because it's such an old game.
Yeah.
And a funny story about that, this is a game that I have looked to for design inspiration a decent amount. And I was telling one of my friends in the games industry who had been a friend for like almost a decade. And he says, I directed that, right?
What?
Turns out he was the game director on it, specifically
wow.
the PC version. And I had no clue until that moment, which was ridiculous.
Wow, yeah, okay.
I would say another game that inspired Potions: A Curious Tale looks very different from Potions at this point, but is Reciteer, an item shop tale.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, you don't? Okay, it's one of the older games on Steam, but you play as basically what would normally be an NPC in a JRPG. You're running an item shop, you hire heroes to go do dungeon dives, but you actually control the heroes through the dungeon dives to get ingredients, or you can just go pure economy based. The main character's motto is capitalism ho! And it's really adorable and really fun, very addictive game. So definitely, I recommend checking it out if you have any interest in like shop management and economy.
Oh, I do. I absolutely do. So I'm gonna have to check it out. Okay, perfect. That's one thing that I will check after this recording, I'm sure. But yeah, well, there's always that magical moment, I suppose, when you move from playing the games to actually making them or wanting to make them. So when did you realize that you wanted to make games? Like, was there some sort of aha moment?
There was, and it was very, very late for me.
Okay.
So I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had a lot of ideas, and I was fine at all subjects, so I didn't have any really strong academic pressure to go one direction or another. I ended up going into engineering with a focus in mechanical engineering to become a biomechanical engineer, so like prosthetics and such.
Mm-hmm.
And then my senior year of college, I met a game developer.
Okay.
And then I met a bunch of game developers. And then I went, you can make games? I can make games. You guys are like me. We're all just like nerds who like games. fuck, I should make games. And that moment changed the rest of my life. So I did start in biotech, actually. I started as a mechanical engineer, then a system and design engineer. And then I taught myself programming on the side and switched over to software development in biotech before switching fully into the games industry. So I was like moonlighting pro bono for indie studios while working biotech during the day, until I felt confident to sort of take the leap myself.
Wow, yeah, no, that's what an interesting story. Starting in biotech and then moving to game development. That's not something I will hear every day on the show. But yeah, no, really, really fascinating. And yeah, I think for me, the magical moment when I realized I wanted to at least try making games. I'm not a game developer necessarily. I write them mostly more than program them. But I do it as a hobby sometimes because I know a little bit of coding. So for me, it's always magical when I get in the same room with other game developers and I realize, oh, I would love to do this stuff. But I have to pay the bills, and for now, I just have to do something else. So, for sure, that's how it is. But I'd say, well, of course, I mean, moving from biotech to game development is a really interesting journey. And do you think there's like, and I'm thinking more of the people who may be listening to this, so other devs, do you think there's like some big learning or a particular development challenge that left a mark on you? And it could be a positive mark or a negative mark. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing about getting into game development is understanding how computers think. Because I think programming is actually really simple. Like, programming is easy. I know programming scares a lot of people. It's like Legos. Like, Legos have very simplistic pieces, but you can put them together to build very complex objects. And that is exactly how programming works too. But you have to think about problems in a different way. You know, the way that you approach a problem in computer science is often actually a little bit more brute force than like math. Like, math was one of my best subjects, but you know, calculus doesn't often matter much in game development. You just do something else instead. You know, you don't have to figure out the derivative. You can just do the calculations because computers are so freaking fast. And so I think that my initial hurdle and joy of getting into game development was learning to think the way that you program, the way that computers think, and breaking down problems that way. And that's still something that I find really fun. It's basically second nature now, of course, after so long. But I think that was an initial hurdle and an initial interest, was figuring out how to look at problems completely differently so that you can program solutions.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you mean after taking a pretty structured course. I can see what you mean about creative problem solving and just approaching things in a different way. And I like what you said about Legos and the fact that they're just very simple pieces, but put together they create incredibly complex things. Yeah. Well, I suppose we're getting closer to the present. So I'm curious about this thing because I found it really interesting that you were the executive director of the IGDA, as you mentioned. How was it? How was that experience? Was it, and how did you get to that position even?
Yeah, so the way that I eventually became the executive director was through volunteering, honestly. I was very active in the local Seattle game development community, including going to events being hosted by the IGDA. And then I saw them have a booth at an event, and I came up and gave them some critical feedback about how they were running events and how I thought they could improve it. And they said, those are great ideas. You should come to our next board meeting. So that's how I ended up on the board of directors for IGDA Seattle. Okay. And I helped them run events and improve our processes and do things for about 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
And then I applied for the international board, like the executive board of directors. And I was elected to that position, like 72% of the vote. It was very flattering that so many people were in support of me. And I did that for 2.5 years, mostly within the secretary role, but was I ever vice chair? I was vice chair, but I think that was after my tenure. And then our executive director stepped down, and I applied for that role, hoping to be able to do more to help the games industry and the people within it, and was appointed, and then did that for almost 3 years, mostly through the pandemic, actually. So I started 6 months before the pandemic hit.
Yeah,
So
that was interesting timing.
yeah, so I basically I got our operations up to date,
Mm,
had it running like a fine-tuned machine, made all of our plans for
hmm
2020, and then all of those got immediately blown up. And it was really cool because we were able to pivot quickly, and we held the Game Development Crisis Conference, which was a free online conference that gave advice for game developers, both ICs and leadership and indie devs, to how to handle the technical issues of
mm,
remote work, the mental health
yeah.
difficulties, the team management, the community management aspects, and really was able to create on a very short
Mm.
timeline this really wonderful and supportive conference for game developers that was completely free for everyone.
That's amazing. And also, I suppose on the bright side, which is not really bright, during the pandemic, a lot of people needed help, so that's what you did. So you had more work in a way. But yeah, that's really amazing. And why did you decide to go indie at one point? Well, go indie, quote unquote, because I mean, I suppose the IGDA and I don't remember the second job that you mentioned, but I don't think that was AAA either. So yeah.
Yeah, well, so Phoenix Labs is AAA. When it came to indie development, that's actually how I started, right? I
Right.
started by doing pro bono work in the
Mm.
evenings for indie studios. And then when I had difficulty getting hired within the games industry, because turns out not a lot of game developers want to hire mechanical engineers.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, I started my own project for my portfolio, um, about making potions and using those as spells.
Okay,
And
right.
there
I
was
see where it's
enough,
going.
yeah, there's enough interest in that project that somebody suggested that I try to do a Kickstarter. So
Mhm,
I actually took about 2 years to create an initial prototype and then
mhm,
to spin up a Kickstarter campaign, and then was able to get that title barely funded. Like it
mm.
funded in the last 15 minutes. Just it barely like eked
Still
over
funded
the
though.
edge of
Still
yeah,
funded.
still funded. But it meant that I had no funds to pay myself. Like
Yeah.
those funds all were for contractors to do things that I can't do well. I'm not a good artist. I'm not a
Mm,
great audio designer. Um, so instead, I had to work full-time jobs in the games industry while then working on the side on
mm.
this project.
I see.
So
Yeah.
I've been indie pretty much my whole career when it comes down to it. I just sometimes do other things while also being an indie developer.
All right. Okay. Um. Yeah. No. That's a great answer. I suppose you've been indie all your life, so I suppose the next few questions will be interesting to you. But before we get to that, um, what is your vision for Potions: A Curious Tale? As in, maybe I can ask this in a different way. What is one thing that you wish every player took out of playing Potions?
The one thing I hope every player walks away from is that they can be successful and overcome problems with their own strengths. Because that's really what Potions is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about problem solving, but you are playing a young witch who is not blessed with the strength of the gods. She can't
Mm,
pick up a sword and slay a dragon. All of her abilities are really the player's own problem solving skills. Like, yeah, she
mm-hmm.
can make potions, but conceivably somebody could buy the same potions that she's making. It's not her making of potions that makes her special.
Mm-hmm.
It is the use of those potions, the use of her problem solving skills. And when it comes down to it, you as a player are the person solving those problems, figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intended to be very empowering.
Mm,
And, the reason that she's a 12-year-old girl, it's because it's a coming of age tale. She's
mm.
trying to figure out where she belongs in life and sort of earn her own way there. And I wish I had a game like that when I was 12, because I didn't have a lot of game heroes to look up to.
Yeah.
I think I had Rose and Legend of Dragoon and like Tifa and
see, yeah.
Final Fantasy and Ferris and Final Fantasy V, but
Uh-huh.
there wasn't a lot of characters that were like main characters of games. Unfortunately, I never played like Tomb Raider when I was young.
Mm,
And I wanted to create that. I wanted to create a character that could be inspiring by empowering the player,
mm.
whether that player is a woman or a man or any other gender.
Yeah, and honestly, I hoped you would say something like that about potions because I kind of picked up on it subconsciously when I read in the Steam blurb already that the game is about a witch who overcomes obstacles with potions. So there is a lot of I suppose it's not just a game for the sake of having fun. There's like which are still perfectly fine, but there is a deep meaning to anything that you do inside the game, and those are the games that I love to play myself. So that sounds really really interesting. But if you could go back, would you change anything about the development of potions?
Um, I mean, I would have got it done faster if I knew everything
Yeah.
I learned on the way. No, I mean, I think that the game development was approached in the best way that I had the capabilities to at the time. And, you know, certainly I had to remake the crafting system 3 times before it felt good. And I had a bunch of learnings about game programming and game design and project management and, you know, relations with team members, ensuring that they feel empowered and respected. But those were learnings that I needed to have growing up and becoming, you know, an experienced professional. I don't think there would have been any way to shortcut that.
Yeah.
I do wish I had read one book earlier. There's a book called Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High.
Okay.
And that is a book that everybody should be required to read, not just game developers. Like, everybody in the world should be required to read this book.
I'll make it my monthly Audible credit.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy that book used for like $2 or $3 because they made so many copies of it. It's not huge either. But it really just talks about how to get along and collaborate with others, have productive conversations, how to help others when they're feeling attacked or defensive. And honestly, that book alone would have saved me a lot of pain, not only in my career, but in like personal relationships. You know, a lot of those things I ended up learning before reading the book, but they were all like School of Hard Knocks learnings. And I wish I had read the book and absorbed it properly earlier in my life.
Right. Well, then that's I already redeemed my 1 credit for that one. So it's going to be the one I listened to on my commute for the next month or so. It's like 7 hours, so it should keep me company for a while. But yeah, no, that's great and good resource for anyone out there who listens to this. It sounds like it's a very empowering book in a lot of ways too. So yeah, and well, I guess we got to my favorite question of the show. The one that I love to ask anybody who comes here and speaks to me. Why are you a game developer, Renee? What drives you forward?
Ooh, everything. So I am someone who doesn't tend to overly specialize. Like, I am interested in everything. I'm interested in art and history and science and programming and engineering, all sorts of things. And games certainly bring that all together. It is one of the most varied industries that you could be part of because there's so many things that are coming together at once, and I love that. I'm also a huge gamer, right? Even prior to understanding I could be in the games industry, I was doing cosplays and game guides. I was streaming, like back when that was really an early thing to do. Because I was just so passionate about video games, and you can see behind me, it's like,
yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful shelf. I can see a Wheatley, I can see a Tomberry, I can see
a Baneling, Imperial Sword,
a sword, I can see all that. Yeah, no, beautiful shelf. And
Dota 2 characters.
My patrons will be able to see this, not the ones listening to the audio episode at home. But yeah, that's shame. Subscribe to my Patreon, I suppose. Yeah, and well, I guess the flip side of that is also that there are some challenges sometimes. What do you think drives you backwards? What is your biggest struggle as an indie developer?
Yeah. So the other thing that I really love about game development is the people. Game developers are so like welcoming and friendly. But as you may have seen, I went viral along with my game's release, and there's a lot of unfriendliness on the internet that I've been having to deal with. So that's been rough. That's definitely been, a driven me backwards in some ways. It is easy to like mentally, dismiss hate and harassment, and it is very hard to emotionally dismiss hate and harassment. And so like that's certainly been a recent struggle of mine, just having so much vitriol put in my direction for, I wouldn't say no reason, but really close to no reason.
Close to no reason, yeah. Okay.
And it's like that has certainly been difficult to navigate. And unfortunately, like there is no solution to that. Like the solution is to ride out the waves, keep doing what I'm doing. Try not to read the comments. But it can be hard to avoid. Like some of them are very persistent about sending hate my way, which is unfortunate.
Wow, yeah, no, that seems horrible. And I guess that is a nice segue into my next question, which is, what is one thing having been in the game industry for over a decade, what is one thing you would change about the games industry?
One thing I would change about the games industry and the world is just making everybody a bit more empathetic. Yeah. And I think that's where like so many of our world's problems come from, and game industry problems, right? No one ever thinks that they are doing wrong. Like, people aren't trying to be bad or evil. I don't think that, people can be evil necessarily. But they can be misguided, and they could feel like they're taking justice into their own hands, or they can think that prioritizing a company's well-being over an individual's is helping more people maintain their jobs. There's a lot of misguided efforts that I think can really hurt others, and that happens a lot within the games industry. And I think that if everyone was just a little bit more empathetic, a little better at putting themselves in someone else's shoes and understanding situations from their perspective, that everything would be a lot better.
I totally agree with you. I wouldn't have said it better. I think the world needs more empathy in general, as you mentioned, not just the games industry. It's just it's so full of negativity out there. Sometimes willingly, sometimes unwillingly, as you say. Not necessarily all people can be evil, or any person can be evil. But yeah, it sucks that you have to deal with hate and harassment yourself as well. But as we know, it happens. It's not a justification. That we can just try and ignore it when it happens, or fight back in our own ways. So yeah, it's still horrible, but what can we do? I guess it's time for some parting words now. So I've got a couple more questions for you, and these should be they should lighten the mood a little bit more. And they should be a little bit more fun to think about. So imagine writing a letter to yourself, but say the child that was playing those games with her dad. What would you say?
What would I say? I would say keep your chin up, keep pursuing your dreams, and keep finding the fun. Learn how to appreciate every moment and find the joy in each of your days. And for context there, I don't think a lot of people know this. I've actually had I had a lot of serious issues with depression, particularly when I was younger. So like middle school, high school era, probably all the way up through like my mid to late 20s. I had periods of severe depression, and I don't think I needed ever much motivation when it came to school or work, but I think I needed motivation for life, for figuring out how to just appreciate being alive and the little things in life that make life enjoyable. Which is not light and fun at all. I just turn all of your questions negative, don't I?
It's totally fine, actually. And I do have one of my most dear of the dearest people I have in my life is I suppose she might be listening to this episode and be like, oh yeah, that's me sometimes. So yeah, I think, and not just her, a lot of people who might be listening to this one might relate with what you say. I think having that encouragement early on might have helped a lot of us. But yeah, there's nothing wrong in in remembering those days, but also there's nothing wrong in knowing that you've gone forward and you've learned from them, and now you're where you are. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And last question. This should be fun, I hope. If you had unlimited budget and time, so both of them, what game would you create?
Gosh, I mean, I would really polish up Potions from the first part.
Okay.
And, you know, that's what I'm working on doing right now, even though Potions is shipped. Now that I have a bit of funds, I'm improving art assets, we're adding a new song, I'm doing some quality of life improvements, and then we'll be bringing it to console. So, you know, first would be doing that, just further polish on that title. And then, I don't know, I just want to create something fun and inspiring. I don't have many grandiose plans for large budget, massive games. Potions is massive in its own way. But what I want to do next is create really fun, like tight gameplay games. And so I'm actually considering doing some party games.
Nice.
Like a series of parties of games. Kind of like Mario Party, but more fair in some ways.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see why you would say that. Yeah, no, that's nice. I thought you were gonna say World of Warcraft. So
no, oh gosh, I would never make an MMO. Yeah, no, I enjoy playing them.
You'd be surprised how many people say they would make an MMO with unlimited budget and time. Like that is like the second most popular. No, it's the first most popular answer. Maybe it's on par with I would just be doing the same thing but better. Which is what you said. So
yeah, I mean, and that's basically my plan. My plan is to.
And I think it always shows that when people say that, not that MMOs have anything wrong with them, but it shows that when people say that they would just be doing what they're doing now, but better, bigger, or more polished, it shows that maybe they're on the right track and they're doing exactly what they love and it wouldn't change one thing. So yeah, I think that might be the case for you. But yeah, what can I say, Renee? It's been a beautiful chat. It's been lovely chatting to you and getting to know you with this interview. I guess other than thanking you, I can ask you, where can other people find you, and if they do, what's the best way to support you?
Yeah, so you can find me online on YouTube and LinkedIn. It's Renee Gittins, ReneeGittins. For all other platforms, it's RikuKat, RAKUKAT, because Riku's the name of my feral druid, so she is a Riku cat. And if you're looking to support me, if you're interested in game dev stuff, follow me on LinkedIn and YouTube and TikTok. If you are interested in supporting me as a game developer, check out Potions: A Curious Tale. The demo is free. It's on Steam. It's 2 to 3 hours, completely free. And if you decide to buy the game, which I would super appreciate if you did like it that much, the demo saves load into the main game and retroactively give you all the achievements you earned while playing the demo. So no risk at all to play the demo. I highly recommend checking it out.
Beautiful. Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, of course, I will put all of these links in the description of the episode so people can find you quickly. And yeah, well, thank you so much for being part of the show. It's been a lovely chat, as I said. And what can I say? I wish you all the best with Potions and that party game series that you want to do next. I'm sure it's going to be great, whatever you do next. Yeah. All right, everybody, and that's a wrap on another episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Renee for being a lovely guest to chat to. Your story is just so amazing. I loved having you on the show, really. Thank you for putting yourself forward for this amazing series with women-led games. So, if you guys enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the show if you haven't already, or leave a rating, 5 stars. It always helps. You can also join the Indie Diarist Discord community by going to theindiediarist.com and clicking the link on the website, or you can click the one in the description of the episode, because now I'm going to put everything that matters to support the show in the description of every episode going forward. Just a little note from now on, as you may have noticed, most of the Indie Diarist cadence in terms of episode will be fortnightly. So every 2 weeks, you will get a new episode instead of every week. This is because of things that are happening in my personal life, but also because I want to start focusing on the YouTube channel more over summer. And this cadence will help me a lot more. There are many ways in which you can support the show. A simple follow on social media will do. But if not, you can just go on Ko-fi or Patreon and just connect with me in any way you want. And lastly, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch because I would love to tell your story to the world because my listeners are always hungry for new and wholesome stories from the indie game development community. I'll speak to you next time for the next Indie Diary.